In the summer of 1943, the Eastern Front became the stage for one of the most significant battles of World War II, the Battle of Kursk. Following their devastating defeat at Stalingrad, German forces were determined to regain the initiative by launching Operation Citadel, a massive offensive aimed at encircling and destroying a substantial portion of the Soviet army. The Soviet High Command, however, was well informed about German intentions and responded with an elaborate and deeply layered defense system. This confrontation not only marked the largest tank battle in history, but also proved to be a turning point, signaling the beginning of a relentless Soviet advance toward Berlin. The seeds of the Battle of Kursk were sown in June 1941, when Nazi Germany launched Operation Barbarossa, the largest land invasion in history. German forces quickly advanced deep into Soviet territory, capturing vast regions and pushing toward Moscow. However, the harsh Russian winter and determined Soviet resistance halted their momentum. The tide began to turn with the catastrophic German defeat at Stalingrad in early 1943. Determined to recover from this setback, Adolf Hitler devised Operation Citadel, which targeted the Kursk salient, a prominent bulge in the Soviet lines. The goal was to launch a double pincer movement from the north and south to encircle and annihilate Soviet troops, thereby restoring German dominance on the Eastern Front. Soviet intelligence, with assistance from the British intelligence service, intercepted German plans well in advance. This allowed the Soviets to prepare an elaborate defense, constructing multiple fortified lines up to 300 kilometers deep. These defenses included trenches, anti-tank obstacles, artillery positions, and one of the most extensive minefields ever laid in warfare. Soviet soldiers and engineers worked tirelessly to create layers of defense designed to absorb and exhaust the German assault. With extensive preparations completed, the Soviets awaited the German offensive. The German offensive was spearheaded by Army Group Center and Army Group South. Field Marshal Günther von Kluge commanded Army Group Center in the north, while Field Marshal Erich von Manstein led Army Group South in the south. Among the key German commanders were Walter Model, who led the 9th Army in the north, and Hermann Hoth, commanding the 4th Panzer Army in the south. Hans Valentin Hube led the Elite II SS Panzer Corps, which played a central role in the southern assault. The German forces relied heavily on their advanced armor, including the new Panther and Tiger tanks, designed to dominate the battlefield. Their strategy focused on speed and firepower to punch through Soviet defenses and encircle enemy formations. Despite these technological advantages, the Germans faced a daunting task, as the Soviets had assembled formidable forces and fortifications. On the Soviet side, Marshal Georgy Zhukov, Deputy Supreme Commander of the Soviet forces, orchestrated the overall defensive strategy. General Konstantin Rokossovsky commanded the Central Front in the north, while General Nikolai Vatutin led the Voronezh Front in the south. Supporting them was General Ivan Konev, who commanded the Steppe Front, responsible for reserves and counteroffensives. General Alexei Jodov led the 5th Guards Army, which would play a pivotal role at Prokhorovka. The Soviets adopted a defense-in-depth strategy, preparing extensive layers of defensive belts to wear down the German attack. Meanwhile, large reserves of tanks and infantry were positioned for a counteroffensive, ready to exploit weaknesses in the German advance once their momentum was exhausted. On July 5, 1943, Operation Citadel commenced with a massive German artillery bombardment and airstrikes, followed by armored and infantry assaults. In the north, Walter Model's 9th Army faced stiff resistance from Soviet defenses at Ponyri and Olkovatka. German forces advanced slowly, suffering heavy casualties as they encountered dense minefields and entrenched Soviet positions. Despite repeated attempts to break through, Model's forces were unable to achieve a decisive breakthrough. In the south, Manstein's 4th Panzer Army advanced toward Oboyan and Prokhorovka, initially making better progress than their northern counterparts. However, the southern advance also faced formidable Soviet defenses, and extensive minefields inflicted severe losses on German tanks. By July 10th, the German advance had slowed considerably, setting the stage for one of the most intense clashes of the battle. The tank engagement at Prokhorovka. On July 12, 1943, The Battle of Prokhorovka erupted, often regarded as one of the largest tank battles in history. The 2nd SS Panzer Corps under Hans Valentin Hube faced off against the Soviet 5th Guards Tank Army, led by Alexei Zhadov. Over 1,000 tanks and self-propelled guns clashed in a chaotic and brutal confrontation. The open fields near Prokhorovka were filled with smoke, fire, and the thunderous noise of cannon fire as tanks engaged in close-quarters combat. Despite suffering heavy losses, the Soviets managed to halt the German advance. The engagement at Prokhorovka exemplified the determination and resilience of the Red Army, marking a critical turning point in the battle and dashing German hopes for a breakthrough. Following the failure of Operation Citadel, the Soviets seized the initiative. On July 12th, they launched Operation Kutuzov to the north, targeting the German-held Orel salient. This offensive forced the Germans into a retreat, and Orel was liberated by August 5th. Simultaneously, Operation Polkovodets-Rumyantsev began on August 3rd, focusing on recapturing Kharkov. After fierce fighting, Kharkov fell on August 23rd, marking the end of the Battle of Kursk and solidifying Soviet strategic dominance. The Battle of Kursk inflicted devastating losses on the German army, which suffered approximately 200,000 casualties and lost thousands of tanks and aircraft. Soviet casualties were higher, estimated at over 800,000, but their ability to replenish forces far exceeded that of the Germans. The victory at Kursk marked the end of German offensive operations in the east and ushered in a series of Soviet advances that would eventually lead to the capture of Berlin in 1945. The Battle of Kursk remains a defining moment in World War II history. It demonstrated the resilience of Soviet forces, the effectiveness of their defensive preparations, and the growing superiority of Soviet armor and strategy. Today, the battle is remembered as a testament to courage, sacrifice, and determination. Thank you for watching this in-depth documentary on the Battle of Kursk. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more historical documentaries.